A mother and her young daughter once attended a wedding. After waiting a long time for it to begin, the young girl began getting impatient. She was fidgeting around, she wouldn't stay in her seat, but finally the ceremony began. The groom walked to the front of the church, and one by one the bridesmaids began filing in, walking very slowly. The little girl couldn't take it anymore, and she leaned over to her mother and in a rather loud voice said, "Can't that guy just pick one already?" I guess she had lost her patience and she just wanted it to be over. Welcome to another edition of Family Worship Night. These devotional videos are based upon our Write a Verse a Day campaign that we're doing here at Fellowship Church. It's still the month of September, and our theme for this month is hopefulness. Let's read today from Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 4. It says this, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." You know, back in verse 2, just before what I read, the verse Paul writes to his readers, and really to us today, is that we can find hope in heaven. In other words, he says, we rejoice in the hope of glory. So no matter what we face here on earth, we can trust in God, and one day we will receive the reward of glory. But then he turns to a different type of logic in verses 3 and 4. You see, in the first idea, he's saying, hang on, because something better, your reward, is coming. But then in verses 3 or 4, he says, but also, there's a hope even in the journey and in the struggle of life. In fact, not just the struggles of life. You know, the word I read was suffering. Paul said that this is in suffering. The King James uses the word tribulation. Paul is not giving us just some simple platitudes towards those minor inconveniences of life. He's not talking about stress from work or long lines at the grocery store or even having a fight with your spouse. Paul is talking about real suffering. The word means that feeling, when you're feeling the pressure of having no way of escape. Have you ever been there? He's talking about the times in life when everything is going bad and it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. God knows that we go through times of real testing and suffering. But this is how we learn endurance. I remember in high school sports, we would learn skills and techniques. We would build strength and strategies to play better, to win whatever sport it was that we were playing. But nothing was really more important than building stamina. Didn't matter how talented you were, how knowledgeable you were about the sport, what strategies you knew, if you couldn't make it all the way to the end. I had a friend of mine who would do a lot of strength training on his legs because he wanted to be a sprinter. He would do leg presses over and over, day after day, adding on more and more weight, and he built up rather large quad muscles in his legs for that strength, hoping to find the speed as a sprinter. You know, he could blast out of the blocks, and he had tremendous speed for about half the race. Then his strength would just die because he didn't have the endurance. You know, going through those hard times in life teach us endurance. When our verse said that endurance builds character, and character leads to hope. It is actually through the trials and struggles that God molds us into the image of Jesus. This is where he teaches us how to hang on to him, how to trust him. And when we learn to truly trust God, that is where we find hope. Thank you for joining in on this episode of Family Worship Night. We'll see you again next week. God bless.